story. Steve has been blessing us with his presence for a while now in our meeting. And I gotta say, I'm starting to get some resentments right this moment because I just saw his view of where he is living. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. But when he shares, he just shares. It's just so heartfelt, such wisdom and strength that he shares with us. And it'll be nice to put his whole story together. And when I was asking him what all I needed to, how I could introduce him, he was like, just say my name and I'll do the rest. So at that, I'm going to stop and I'm going to throw it over to the man of the hour. Thank you so much for your service tonight.
Thank you. Steve, alcoholic. My sobriety date is May 26th of 2007. I've been blessed, to say the least. I come from a small town in northern New Jersey, primarily a Polish town with a lot of bars. And needless to say, there was a lot of drinking. Not to say that because there was a lot of bars, there were a lot of underage drinking, but I did go to bars when I was like 17 years old. And I remember putting my backpack on the back of the stools that they had there, the chairs, and drinking. It was a town, it was that kind of town, it wasn't that long ago. It was the 90s. It's not like drinking age was 18, so people tended to look the other way, and a lot of stuff was swept under the rug because of it. The cops were kind of like friendly with everyone. Not a lot of people would get in trouble, and there wasn't a lot of crime going on in town. Let's put it that way. It was one of these small towns. Anything that happened bad was domestic. So, and I come at 12 years old, born and raised there, and 12 is when I first had my first brush with alcohol. And I remember, I don't know exactly the time frame, but I remember my parents had split when I was 12. That's, there was a lot of things that happened when I was 12 years old. I had my first drink. My parents had gotten separated, not divorced. And my mother got into a really bad car accident that would have killed her if she was wearing her seatbelt. It's the only time I ever advocate for not wearing a seatbelt, but in hindsight, if she was wearing one, it would have been fatal. So I had my first drink, and that was I remember distinctly, 6-pack of Budweiser in the woods behind the Little League field where we played baseball, and where I went to grade school. It was right in between. There was like a hill there, and I got drunk, and I liked the feeling of being buzzed until the booze started to settle in. I didn't know about the whole, if you drink fast and you drink a lot, you'll get drunk, but there's still a lot more in your system to digest. So you're just going to go over the edge, and before you know it, here I am, puking my brains out. And I didn't like that too much. So I didn't actually drink that often when I was that age. I only remember maybe a handful of times, not even. I distinctly remember, though, when I was probably about 15 years old, when I really started to dabble with drinking and other stuff. I remember playing pool at my grandparents' house, and there was this room next to the pool table downstairs, next to the fireplace, and that was where the liquor room was. That's my grandfather stored all his cheap alcohol and cheap beer, and we went up doing shots. Me and a buddy of mine of like this 151 just rum, and that time I had a good time. I knew when to stop. I had like 2 or 3 shots, and I was feeling it, and I like the feeling, but I still don't remember that overwhelming feeling like it was going to be a problem. And I guess that's how it sneaks up on you. It for me, it kind of crept its way in, and like many others, it went from being a good time to a very bad time relatively quickly. And there was consequences, like there always is when you do stupid shit. So I started smoking weed and doing coke pretty much right off the bat after that. Pot was one of those things that was always around. And we did a lot of smoking and drinking, So the pot, those drugs that are in my story are there for a reason, because alcohol was always was there. It was always like that magic elixir, you know. You get drunk at the beginning of the night, and you might do some other stuff that might bring you in the other direction, and then you get drunk again. You know, the whole time you've been drinking, but those are the feelings. You know, it's like a roller coaster. You know? It's like lots of alcohol, Coke, lots of alcohol. You know, otherwise it's going to be a real bad time trying to fall asleep at night. And I found myself, you know, 15 or 16 years old, pretty much, you know, doing that on school nights every once in a while. And you know, I was a weekend warrior for the most part, but we started, you know, getting 40s old English malt liquor and everything. And growing up next to New York City it's easy. I was only 8 miles outside Manhattan. It was easy to get to the city and get drugs and coerce people into driving us there because we weren't old enough yet. And we kind of lived in a suburb that was, like I said, close knit, where everyone kind of sheltered each other, but we were really, really close to New York City. So somehow it was like I was stuck in the 50s mentality, the way the town was structured and politics and everybody. It was like one of those, like, you know, I forget the name of the show, but you know, it was one of those small town feels, but it was really close to a big city. And, you know, we took full advantage of that. And I can remember in high school, when I got my license, I was 17, and we'd go at lunchtime, we'd leave the high school and we'd go right out Route 80 to the Bronx and get drugs. We'll go to Harlem, get drugs, and be back in time for a lunch period to be over, and we wouldn't miss a beat. You know, we wouldn't even walk in late to our next period. So as long as we had some money, and I always worked since I was like 15, you know, I always had some money for the important stuff like drugs and alcohol, because, you know, when you're that age, I guess that's what it's important, you know, drugs, alcohol, and girls. And I quickly started to have issues, and they weren't issues that were glaringly obvious, because at that age, everyone kind of acted the same way. Everyone went and got plastered at the football game. You know, everyone got drunk. I just took it to another level. I went to a bar in Passaic, the next town over, and I would get in. You know, we got really drunk after a football game one night, and I was drinking like this Everclear or Spiritus. It's like the Polish version of Everclear. It's grain alcohol. And I drove home, and I crashed my car on the block that my buddy lived. And my house was only, because the town was only a square mile. My house is right on the other side of town. So the farthest I had to drive was a square mile, and my car started and the wheels turned. So I drove home. You know, my car was totaled technically because the frame was all bent and everything, but the cops never caught on. They never they never showed up at the scene. No one ever looked out their window. I guess it was so late and people were, you know, sound asleep that I got away with it. And that was a bad thing for someone like me, because the minute I could get away with something, I would take that further. You know, give me an inch, you know what I'm saying. And I use that to my advantage. And I remember driving home and getting home and waiting outside my car. I think I was really drunk, but I think I was waiting outside my car, but I didn't hear any sirens. I know that. No cops came. And I went inside, and I went up throwing up all of my mother's like perfectly carpeted. I mean, she carpeted the toilet seat cover and the top of the toilet, and it was like yellow carpeting. And I just puked up this god awful red stuff because I was drinking fire water and whatever else. I don't even remember anything I could put in my system. And I got woken up, you know, not in a nice way, and I deserved it. And, you know, one thing led to another. I had to tell my mother. And not only did I puke all over the bathroom, but I totaled the car. Well, it was my car. I was paying for it. I had a job, and I was going to pay for it to be, you know, fixed. That's for sure. So that turned out to be expensive. And at that at that point in my life, I'm not making a hell of a lot of money. I'm still in high school, I'm working at a fish market. So cutting fish doesn't pay many bills, but it saved my ass that one time. And that was like junior, senior year, going into senior year. And then something else had happened at that point. We had decided that it would be a good idea to drink and go to my buddy's attic, which is on like a main street, and shoot the BB gun, which is fine until you start pointing it at people. And we started pointing it across the street at this Krauser's, which is like a corner store that we have here. And there was a laundromat, and people were trying to go about their business. And it was like a Saturday night, and we started, shooting people in the ass with a BB gun, not really thinking someone's going to get pissed off. And somebody got pissed off, and I pumped that thing like 8 times, and I shot that guy right in the ass. And boy, he looked up a couple of times, and I shot him again because I was an idiot, still am sometimes. But he called the cops, and he was like a bad egg, so to speak, from like the next town over. So the cops didn't really pay too much attention to him, but he said he got shot. So he said he got shot, and the cops came, and we of course thought something was going on down the block. But then we quickly noticed that they turned into the house that we were in, and the gig was up. So I'm 17 years old, go to court, and I take the rap, because somebody shot the friggin' BB gun. They found the BB gun, and my friends were 18 and I was 17. I knew what I was doing. So I'm like, I'll just take the rap for everyone because I'm a good egg and I play along and I don't rat my friends out. And I know I shot the guy a couple times, so it doesn't really matter. And they're 18. I don't want them to get in trouble because I like my friends. I'm loyal. And that went over pretty good for the most part, except for my one friend at the house where the gun was found that we were shooting. But for the most part, I just got a slap on the wrist. It was like pretrial intervention or whatever. So when I was 19, I've been working out a lot, and my buddies from the gym, I started to become friends with guys from the gym, and I started to bounce down in Hoboken and in bars down there. And that was a lot of fun because it kept me busy, it kept me away from just being a complete alcoholic all weekend long. I'd have a purpose, I took it kind of seriously too. At first, I wasn't drinking at all when I was down there, and I wasn't really someone who fought. I would take it as like a security job. I'm with a bunch of my friends. We're all having a decent time. There was some women involved, and I got to stay out of trouble for the meatiest part of Friday and Saturday night, where things really went bad for a person like me. So it was good. It kind of kept me, straight, so to speak. But then I quickly went downhill when I moved in with my buddy, and then all bets were off. So I'm 19 years old, and I'm like full blown, drug addict and alcoholic, and I moved into my buddy's house, and it was like Pablo Escobar came to town because it was bad. It got bad real quick. Within like 6 to 8 months, I put myself in rehab, and this whole time I've been working for a phone company, so they had a plan. Apparently, a lot of alcoholics work for a phone company, and I was nothing special, so I went to rehab, and I wound up drying out for a little while, and that lasted like 3 months. But what it did was it kind of planted that seed, the infamous seed that everyone talks about. It showed me, not only did it make me a liar for the rest of my drinking career, because I had already admitted defeat, and I admitted that I was an alcoholic and a drug addict. And I had to live with that from the first drink that I took after that point until I got sober again. I had to, in the back of my mind, I had to know that I have already admitted something, So it shifted my thinking a little bit. And I never felt the same about, partying anymore and drinking. And there were moments where I had like these okay moments where I was doing it for fun. And then there was moments where it wasn't fun at all. And I was just doing it to get out of my head, get out of myself. And I, didn't want to be in that mood anymore. So I altered it, with substance. And, that worked for a little while. But back to rehab for the first time. I stayed sober for 3 months, and I started doing my shit again. And I was living at home, and I started going to meetings. When I was getting out of rehab, and then it started to fade off. I wouldn't talk anymore to my parents about going to meetings anymore and the importance of sobriety anymore. They'd ask, "Hey, you talk to your sponsor?" I'm like, "Yeah, I talked to him," and I don't know if they kind of chalked it up to, oh well, maybe he's just going through a phase and he doesn't need it, and he can, maybe they didn't know how it worked. My parents didn't know how it worked, so they didn't know the disease, addictive behavior. And I went back to what I know best, and that's getting myself out of myself with alcohol. And I swore off one substance, and that was cocaine. And I'm like, all right, I'm good. I'll just drink for the rest of my life and whatever. And that worked for a little while because I wound up moving back in with my buddy that I lived with when I was first moved out of my house when I was 19. And um, he had moved on to being a drug dealer. So I was kind of caught with how long do I have left before I get wrapped up in all this? But it's a party atmosphere. I can handle it. I know what I'm doing. And within a year, it was raided by the drug enforcement, and I had a lot of paraphernalia, and it was like a party every night at that house, and it was just a bad scene. I just wasn't growing up. I was starting to put a few years on, and now it's like, all right, fun's over. You're not 17 anymore. You can't just like talk your way out of shit anymore like you always did. You're not that cunning, and you remember you're an alcoholic. And there was times, like I said, where it was fun, but it was starting to become more of something that was dragging me down. It was something that was pulling my soul out of my body and just smacking it around. And it's so hard to think of it at that time. Looking back of it, it's very easy to realize it. Hindsight's 2020. But looking back at it, I blame the drugs and the alcohol for what happened. It's not the drugs and the alcohol, it's me. I didn't Alcohol is just a liquid that sits in a bottle or whatever container it's in. It has no bearing on my life if I don't put it in my body. And I was looking in the wrong places to place blame. I wasn't looking at myself and saying, you're the problem, you're the one that's messed up, you got to change your thinking. It was, well, if I don't put that in my body, I'm fine. Okay, maybe in a way you might not get arrested, but you're still mentally locked in your own prison that you've constructed, and I've talked about it before, and I kind of realized what kind of prison that I built. It was a very strong, fortified structure that I could just hide in my mind, and I could grab whatever I needed. And alcohol is readily available; it's legal, and now I'm of age, and I can just climb back into that little bunker that I constructed over years of manipulating and lying to myself and others. I could just hide right back in there. That structure's strong. Nothing's going to knock it down. It's got to be torn down from the inside, and I didn't realize that. So, it's like I'm firing blame missiles from my little bunker of horrible thinking and destructive behavior and manipulation, and it gets me nowhere. You keep pushing people away, and after a while they're just going to say, all right, fine, I'll just leave you alone. If that's what you want, that's what you get, you know? And that's a hard thing to face. And it was even harder for me because I didn't want to deal with it. So I recognized that. I started to recognize that in myself. And I said, well, it's too much of a hassle to actually correct it. So I might as well just keep going as far as I can go, as long as I can go. And then that's at the point where I pretty much said, I think I'll live till like 25. And that's all I give myself. And there was plenty of opportunities for me, my heart to stop. You know, I remember in New York City, I was bouncing one night and went to clubs and I was popping hits of ecstasy. And that's all like, I don't even know what the hell's in it, but I'm drinking Red Bull and vodka and doing like all these, you know, all this stuff and vodka and champagne and whatever I can get my hands on, I'm drinking, you know, and my heart's already racing. And I wound up almost like having a heart attack in the back of someone's Escalade. And I said, can you stop the car and let me out? I think I'm having like a anxiety attack. Like, you know, I feel like my heart's going to jump out of my chest and I don't even know which direction my brain's going. But I went up sitting on a divider at the light on Canal Street and West Side Highway at 3 a.m. You know, can you imagine what the people were thinking? Well, if you're on Canal Street at West Side Highway at 3 a.m, you're probably in the same, you know, situation I'm in. But here's, you know, some idiot standing out there, looks like he's dying, and there's a car stopped in the outside lane of West Side Highway, you know, just waiting for him to come back in, you know, and stuff like that. Just I didn't care, you know, what I looked like, because it was all about me and how I felt. You know, these people aren't going to know who I am. They're never going to see me again. I don't care. I don't give a shit. You know what I do. I'm not affecting them. You know, I'm not putting on a show for anyone. It's all about me. And right now, it's up to me to stay alive. So I'm going to sit here. You know, and that went on for years. You know, I had really really bad instances until I was like 27 that were not enough to really kill me, but should have. I did some stuff that I really regret. You know, I physically harmed, you know, people. I remember getting into fights in bars and just, you know, I was violent, I was aggressive, and I was strong, and I was out of my mind. And I had I had serious addiction, alcoholic, you know, mental problems that I would take out physically on other people. And that was not who I was, you know, without, I could say without the alcohol or drugs, but before I lost my mind, that's not who I was. And that's who I started to become, you know, and that scared me because I didn't want to be just out of control, because there's only one way you really end up like that, when you're that violent and you pick, you know, the wrong person to deal with in that way. And I remember bouncing in Patterson in a freaking strip club, and I was the only one there. And they threw a guy out, and he got mad. I went to a car and got a gun, and he never made it back in. But I think his friends talked him out of it. But you know, I'm doing that for like $75 a week. You know, and I'm putting myself in danger for what? And not to mention, like, if I was drinking, I probably would have done something even dumber to him, and I probably would have ended up with a hole in my gut or in my head. You know, so when I was like, when I was 27, that's when shit really started getting bad. From 27 to 29, when I got sober, was absolutely god awful. And I remember, you know, the 27 Club, all those famous rock stars, they all died at 27. And I'm like, man, there's got to be something about 27. I'm thinking to myself, like, you know, maybe you think adulthood should kind of peak at 25, and if you don't find yourself by then, you know, you're kind of in limbo. And I guess that's the way I felt, because when I was like 27, I was like, man, I just don't give a shit anymore. Plain and simple. I don't care. I'm just a waste of a human being, and I'm just going to ride this out as long as possible. And I'll just, without even trying, take people with me. So, yeah, I remember taking medical leave from work for like disability for stress leave, they called it. And, I take stress leave to fix myself, and I went up drinking the whole time, you know. And I took stress leave not from work stressing me out. It's from my own brain stressing me out. It's just it runs nonstop. And I could be sitting there on the couch watching TV, for hours. My brain is just running around inside, just constantly running around inside my brain, and it was just it got really really painful. And I tried to quiet it down with alcohol, and that wasn't working. So um, I had some run-ins with the law. I remember. Oh, what the hell was I on probation for? I was on probation. I overdosed on alcohol and painkillers because I actually was chewing tobacco, and I passed out from drinking too much, and I passed out backwards. So I swallowed it, and it all went to my lungs. So now, a Good Friday night turns into a 36-hour coma, medically induced coma, and my parents sitting in Hackensack Hospital waiting for their son to wake up. And what do? I signed myself out of the nut ward because they put me there because they thought I was going to commit suicide, which I might as well have, but I wasn't. So I signed myself out so I can go and drink some more drugs. And that was what I figured would be a good use of my time. And I was on probation at that time, and I was such a charming SOB that my female friggin' probation officer, I made up some story and she just let me slide. Like I don't even know like what you would get for that, but probably thrown in jail. I didn't have anything, no extension on my probation, nothing. I even came out dirty one time and they sent me to rehab, and I'm like, all right, there's another laugher. I knew how to beat the system. If I got a piss test, I'd just, drink a lot of water before I went. Um, I couldn't get myself clean, and I couldn't do anything right in life, but I knew how to beat a piss test. That's like my priority right there. That's how effed up I was. But so the end came when I tried to kill myself, and I had gotten a DUI, and within a month, I was drinking friggin' this beefeater gin, god awful stuff, and I took some narcotic sleeping pills, and I took a bunch of them, so I was pretty out of it. And I'm like, I'm just gonna kill myself. So I took my belt, I put it around my arm. I took my box cutter razor from my days when I was you know, unpacking grocery at the grocery store and boxing shelves and stuff like that. And I cut my wrist, and I switched to the other side. I cut that wrist, and then I just like sat there, and I just passed out because that was, what I was up to at the time. Just drank until I passed out and passed out. And I didn't realize that, like, I didn't cut enough or deep enough, or either, God didn't want me to cut and he wanted me to live some more. So, it's just like I couldn't do it. I was like, "Ugh." And I was so incredibly drunk, and I just passed out, and I woke up and just blood all over the place. And once again, paramedics there, probably the same people that came 2 years earlier when I overdosed. And they put me in a hospital, and that was in April of '07, and I had tried to get sober um, that previous fall, and I got a sponsor, and I stayed. I was a good boy till that January, and then the last 2 months right there were bad, and that's when I tried to kill myself. And so I'm in there, and I got my sponsor, and he came up to the nut ward. They let him in, and I said, I think I had enough. I don't know where to turn anymore. I don't know. I can't pull out of this, and I obviously can't kill myself. I can't even do that correctly. So I might as well try living for once in my life. I mean, really living, not like living like, oh, let's go live it up and get some margaritas. Like, no, like, slow and steady, dumb it down as much as possible, and maybe listen to someone else besides my own brain, because I've already admitted years ago that it's defunct. So what I did was I stayed sober for a little while, and I had that, mysterious trapdoor and I got a resentment and I did something stupid. And then the next day was May 26th, and that was '07. And I got sober and I did some things you're not supposed to do. Like I moved in with a girl after 5 months of being sober. I moved in with someone, and I did stuff because I always had to test the waters because I'm an asshole, mostly to myself. So I did stuff that you wouldn't recommend to anyone. Don't do anything serious the first year. Okay, not only get in a relationship, but moving in with someone, change residence, all that stuff. But I did stay sober, and that was down in Bergen County. I live now up in Sussex County, up in Vernon. I moved in 2013, but I got sober and I got a dog, and I never got the plant. So I didn't know if I could keep a plant alive, but the dog's still alive, right? He's still kicking over there. He's kind of sleeping because he just had steak and tater tots because that's what I make every night for dinner after I go skiing. But I have definitely gotten a life beyond my wildest dreams. And somehow my mind can screw that up sometimes too, because I'll sit here like a selfish child on a pity pot and say, oh, my life sucks, um, and then I realize like the worst, what are you thinking about, um, what problems you have in life today? Like, what conditions the snow is for skiing, really? You know, I have the same crap that everyone else on earth has with, employment. All right, let's break that down. My job, it's pretty easy. Yeah, I'm a lineman. I work outside in the weather. But you know what? My boss is not really on me to the point where, it's really a problem. I get along with them, you know. I get along with the people I work with. I'm happy with the friends that I have, the people in my life today. My parents, they actually wound up getting back together. I don't know why, but they did before I got sober. But they got back together, and my mother actually had gotten sober a couple of years ago, and she doesn't go to meetings anymore. But she doesn't really do. I never seen her drink ever again. She's happier than she ever was. She doesn't pop, painkillers anymore, like I was doing. Um, and she's her immune system came back, and it's like she's getting healthier as she's getting older because she's sober, in her right mind. I don't know how much she prays. I don't think she does that much of that anymore, but it just seems like it's an easier life. And I think it's because maybe she saw what happened with me, and my dad doesn't even drink anymore. But I've had, I've had some tests this last couple of years and whatever. I mean, that's part of life. Not only is it part of sobriety, that's part of everyone's life. I mean, I'm no different. I try to keep it simple. And in fact, I try to think that I can go through everything that everyone else can go through. I have the capability, I'm not special. I don't have to sit inside my mind and think that I'm something special because I'm sober. I don't have the luxury though of sitting on resentments because I know it'll make me drink. And I don't have the luxury of holding anger. I gotta get rid of it. And I pick it up again, my shortcomings. I'd like to say that I'd like to have God remove them every day, but sometimes, I like to sit in that little miserable part of my couch over there and watch TV and maybe binge on Netflix to get out of my head. But sometimes I like to sit there and be in my head, and it's scary. I don't know why I test the waters. I think that's my disease talking to me. And I try and get off my ass and do something productive. And I enjoy speaking tremendously. This is probably the best thing that I could ever do in my life is speak. I can speak all the time about anything, but mainly about sobriety. I try to help people because I know that'll keep me sober. Is it selfish? I don't know, maybe. But you know what? it helps people. You know, if I did something to harm someone to help myself, it's a different story. But if it helps you and helps me, that's the way it goes. I mean, you know, I'm not a saint. I try to be pretty good on a whole. On average, I like to think I'm better than I'm bad, or good, not bad. You know what I mean? Um, I try not to be a complete people, but I'm not a people pleaser. You know, my my life has changed in such a way that I can be of service and I can be there for other people and I can treat people the way I'd want to be treated. And no, it doesn't always work out that way. And I'm a human being, and sometimes shit goes wrong, but I don't have to drink over it today. My life is 10 times better than it ever was. In fact, I didn't think I'd be alive anymore because the way I was running, I'd either get shot by somebody that I hit in a bar that was part of whatever frigging gang, Latin Kings, or whatever I got myself into one time. Um, or I crash my car, or I just try and kill myself again. I mean, let's be honest. Once I cross that line, it's hard to think of anything else that, you know, I rather not drink. Let's put it that way. You know, I rather just, you know, I don't know. You know, I don't even want to say it, but I really don't want to drink anymore, ever again. I don't want to drink anymore. I don't want to do any more drugs, you know. Um, I've had a couple surgeries, and yeah, the painkillers, okay, they are what they are. You know, what are you going to do? They're there for a reason. I've had some pretty bad sports injuries. But you know what? At least I'm doing sports, which probably wouldn't be doing if I was drinking, drugging. I try and keep active, and I pray every morning. I pray every morning. You know, I have a cross on my dresser, and I pray, and I thank God. I hardly ever ask him for stuff, but lately I've been asking him for a little bit of peace of mind. My mind's been a little squirrely lately, and you know, I started a podcast and the Instagram page, and the podcast I haven't recorded since like early December. I mean, it's a hobby. I'm not doing it for anything other than just to spread cheer and have a good time. I mean, it's great palling around with a bunch of sober people. I mean, let's be honest. You know, we have better personalities than most people that aren't sober, but you know, that's just my opinion. Um, I started writing some thoughts down, and I started putting some little rhymes together and some really basic, you know, rudimentary type poetry and stuff like that. And that's pretty cool, you know. And I'm a pretty opinionated person, but um, I like to think that I should really just tone it down and keep it simple. Stupid. I call myself stupid all the time, and I actually got called out in that one time. They're like, did you just call yourself an asshole?" I'm like, "Yeah, I dropped my fork and I got it dirty on the floor, so I'm an asshole. So I got to get another fork." You know, I try and keep myself level headed and modest as I can possibly be, and I have a God that I understand, and I hope that He understands me. And I have family in my life that, quite frankly, I don't know if I would have sat back and took the shit that I doled out and stayed by my side, but a lot of those people did. Very few people left my life when I was at my worst, and I have a lot of gratitude for that. You know, because I, like most of us, thought I was the biggest monster in the world. You know, and maybe I wasn't. Maybe I was just a human being that was misguided and needed some direction. You know, good orderly direction. That's all I have. Thank you for letting me share my story.